Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for the hearing. Much appreciated. Dr. McCarthy and Dr. Brennan, if you want to also chime in. It's not only here, but every time that there's a discussion about promulgating a regulation or a rule around worker protections, we get the one-size-fits-all counter-argument, and also what I heard from one of the witnesses, we'll be forced to do individualized plans for each worker. Respond to that, because we're talking about standards here as the pipeline, as the guardrails to protect workers. Talk about the argument that we can't do this because one size fits all does not work.
There are many OSHA federal standards for hazardous exposures, such as asbestos, lead, and the list goes on. And they are not a one-size-fits-all for all employers. They have action levels, permissible exposure levels, ceiling limits. NIOSH has recommended, have recommended action levels and exposure levels. And so just like the weather, the NOAA has a chart where you calculate heat index with temperature. OSHA also has a standard. So it's not, if the employer does not fit in that heat and temperature. We also have, for indoor workers, wet bulb globe temperatures, and this takes into account 4 different measures for heat, so you can apply it equally among outdoor and indoor workers, because as Mr. Rodriguez said, the indoor can be much higher than even the outdoor worker.
Thank you very much. Any addition to that?
Yes, thank you for asking. I feel far from it being a one-size-fits-all. I really think that it is a menu of options. There are things that we do that are kind of transcendent through any jobs, and we talked a bit about that in terms of the education and the drinking and surveillance. So those are common elements. How you execute them are individual. Then we talked about a long list of others that really are very much, does it apply to the particular workplace? With regard to people with individual susceptibilities, most of the guidance for occupational exposures are acclimatized, healthy people. It's the reason why you want to have a good emergency plan to take those other people who may be individually at risk that fall out.
Appreciate that. Mr. Arturo Rodriguez, good to see you again, my friend. Would employers, we talked a lot about Cal OSHA, would employers be providing water, rest, shade, and innovations that we see now in California had Cal OSHA not been implemented in the past?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, it's as mentioned earlier today by Mr. Little, over 26 states, I believe, do have the opportunity to employ some type of standards as we've been discussing here today, and only 3 have done so. So I think it's incumbent upon OSHA to really take action on a federal basis to ensure that we do have standards set across the country.
Yeah. Farm workers many times are paid on the piecework, and the many farm laborers on a piecework basis that they could lose pay for taking shade and rest breaks. How are they compensated within Cal OSHA?
So my understanding is, and the way that we've chosen to do it in the state of California has been, and piecework is very common there, that they'll take the average of the week, the hours worked during the week, and look at the wage that they've earned and average it out, and that becomes the hourly rate for the worker to be paid whatever break time that they took.
Yeah. Cal OSHA, again, another question. Would the agency have taken the initiative to adopt the prevention standards, heat illness prevention standards, if the legislature had not passed a bill that mandated that?
In our opinion, no, they wouldn't have.
You know, one of my colleagues mentioned the point about climate change, and yes, that's part of the discussion. Everything is warming. The globe is warming. We can have that debate some other time, and I know it'll be an intense debate about what we do about climate change in this Congress, but nevertheless, this is not part of that debate. This is about worker protection, regardless of the source of the heat, regardless of the exposure, and then we should deal with that in that level because, yes, climate change is part of it, but this is the easy part that Congress faces in dealing with this issue. Yield back, and thank you again, Madam Chair.